The sun had barely clawed its way above the jagged eastern ridge of Blackwood National Park when I arrived for my first day, the air thick with the scent of pine and the promise of something ancient stirring beneath the surface. Dew clung to the needles, catching the morning light in fragile, glistening beads, a deceptive beauty that masked the unease settling in my chest. After 3 years of environmental policy work, hunched over a desk in a sterile office, I had finally escaped to the wild, trading spreadsheets for ranger duties, eager to protect nature with my own hands rather than merely theorize about it. The main ranger station loomed smaller than I'd imagined, a squat wooden structure weathered by years of harsh winters, its interior a mix of coffee's bitter aroma and the sharp tang of pine-scented cleaner that stung my nostrils. As I adjusted my newly pressed uniform, still stiff from its packaging, a man's voice boomed from behind a desk buried under a chaotic stack of paperwork. "Torres? Linda Torres?" The voice called, rough with authority. "Yes, sir?" I replied, straightening my posture, my heart thudding with a mix of anticipation and nerves. Senior Ranger Wilson rose to greet me, his height towering over my expectations, his frame broad and imposing beneath a uniform worn soft by time. "Welcome to Blackwood. Your partner should be here any minute. Martinez is always on time, if nothing else." He checked his watch, a habitual gesture that suggested precision was his religion. The door swung open with a creak, and I turned to see a man in his late 40s step inside, his uniform bearing the creases and faded patches of real use, a stark contrast to my pristine attire. This was Steve Martinez, my new partner, his presence carrying a weight I couldn't yet name. "Steve, this is Linda Torres, your new partner," Wilson said, his tone shifting to a stern edge. "Make sure she understands how we do things here." Martinez nodded once, a curt gesture devoid of warmth, his dark eyes meeting mine briefly before he spoke. "Let's get started then. No handshake, no welcome, just business." A cold efficiency that shattered the warm Ranger camaraderie I'd naively envisioned during my desk-bound daydreams. For the next week, Martinez led me through Blackwood with the precision of a machine, his explanations thorough but devoid of personal connection. He pointed out the trails we maintained, their dirt paths winding through dense forests and rocky outcrops, the campsites we monitored, nestled in clearings where the wind whispered secrets, and the routes we patrolled, marked by weathered signs that seemed to fade into the landscape. "We never patrol after sunset without proper equipment," he said on our second day, his voice flat as we drove back to the station before dusk, the sky bruising purple above the treetops. "Always in pairs. Always stay on designated roads after dark." "What about emergencies?" I asked, my curiosity piqued by the rigidity of his rules. "Lost hikers? Medical evacuations?" Martinez's knuckles whitened on the steering wheel, a subtle tell of tension. "Special protocols for those. You'll learn if necessary." By Friday, doubt gnawed at me, a quiet voice wondering if I'd misjudged my leap to Blackwood. I'd spent the week checking trail markers, their wooden surfaces etched with fading paint, restocking informational pamphlets with their warnings against feeding squirrels, and smiling at tourists who seemed oblivious to the forest's deeper pulse. Meanwhile, Martinez handled the intriguing calls. A minor injury at Eagle Point, where a hiker had twisted an ankle on a rocky descent. Reports of unusual animal activity near the lake, where ripples disturbed the still water without explanation. A possible illegal campsite deeper in the forest, its faint smoke curling into the canopy. I was organizing supplies in the station, the clatter of cans and packets filling the silence, when Martinez's radio crackled to life. "Dispatch to Ranger Martinez." A voice cut through the static, crisp and urgent. Martinez unclipped his radio, his posture shifting with a sudden alertness. "Martinez here. We've got reports of abandoned trash at Pinewood Site B. Possible environmental hazard." He glanced at his watch, then at me, his eyes narrowing. "Copy that. We'll check it out." Clipping the radio back to his belt, he barked, "Grab your jacket, Torres. Time you learned about cleanup duty." I followed him to our truck, my steps quick to match his brisk pace, a thrill of finally escaping basic duties surging through me. "What kind of trash are we dealing with?" I asked as we pulled away from the station, the gravel crunching beneath the tires. Martinez didn't answer immediately, his gaze fixed on the road. Doesn't matter what kind. The rule is we clean it up and document it properly. He glanced at the darkening sky, a shadow passing over his face. We have 3 unwritten rules at Blackwood. First, never patrol alone. Second, don't leave designated roads after sunset. Third, always carry the special cleanup kit in the truck. I noticed his driving had quickened, the truck's engine humming with an urgency that unsettled me. That seems excessive for trash collection, I ventured, testing the waters. Martinez's eyes flicked to me briefly, a flicker of something, warning perhaps, crossing his features. This isn't a typical national park, Torres. Blackwood has its peculiarities. Best you understand that early. The trees grew denser around us, their branches interlocking to block the fading light, casting the truck in a premature twilight. I told myself it was my imagination, a trick of the mind after a long week. But as we rounded a curve, I caught Martinez's right hand drop from the wheel, checking his sidearm in its holster. The casual movement sent a chill through me, a premonition that this was no ordinary cleanup. We're about 5 minutes out, he said, his voice steady. When we get there, you follow my lead. Do exactly what I tell you when I tell you. This isn't the time for questions. The truck's headlights pierced the gathering darkness, illuminating a sign ahead. Pinewood Campsite B 1 mile. My pulse quickened. I don't understand, I said, my voice trembling with the weight of my uncertainty. What's really going on here? You will soon enough, Martinez replied, his tone cryptic. Some things at Blackwood can't be explained in training manuals. They have to be seen. We pulled into Pinewood Site B just as twilight surrendered to night, the campsite emerging from the shadows like a forgotten stage. A fire pit held cold ashes, an overturned camping chair leaned against a picnic table, and food wrappers littered the ground, their crinkling a stark sound in the stillness. The sight of ordinary trash was almost a relief after Martinez's warnings, but the place felt wrong. Too quiet, the usual chorus of crickets and rustling leaves absent, replaced by a heavy silence that pressed against my ears. Let's get this cleaned up, Martinez said, already moving with practiced efficiency. He tossed me a pair of thick gloves and a trash bag. Start near the picnic table. I'll check the perimeter. I worked methodically, collecting candy wrappers and empty beer cans, the mundane task doing little to ease the anxiety coiling in my gut. Martinez, however, wasn't collecting trash. His flashlight beam danced across the ground in an expanding spiral, his movements deliberate, searching. Find anything interesting? I called out, trying to inject casualness into my voice. He grunted without looking up. Just keep cleaning, Torres. The night grew colder, a light breeze stirring the pines, carrying a faint smell I couldn't place. Metallic, wrong, like rust mingled with something organic. I followed my nose toward a large boulder at the campsite's edge, and there it was. A body, not just dead but torn apart. Intestines spilled onto the ground, the chest cavity splayed open, the face frozen in a scream, eyes wide with a terror that death hadn't erased. I stumbled backward, my trash bag slipping from numb fingers, a strangled whisper escaping me. Steve! He was beside me in seconds, his flashlight joining mine on the gruesome scene. I expected shock, horror, panic, anything but the resignation that settled over his face. Damn it, he sighed, running a hand through his hair. I was hoping we wouldn't find one tonight. One. I stared at him, my mind reeling. There's a dead body, a murdered person, and you're acting like you found a piece of litter. Martinez avoided my eyes. Take photos, document everything. I'll call it in. Shouldn't we secure the scene or something? My police procedural knowledge felt inadequate, a flimsy shield against this nightmare. Just take the photos, Torres, he said, his voice hardening. Full body, close-ups of wounds, surrounding area. Standard protocol. Nothing about this felt standard, but I pulled out my park-issued camera with shaking hands, each click of the shutter capturing another layer of horror. The unnatural angle of the limbs, the expression of terror etched into the face, the wounds that defied explanation, too precise for any animal attack I'd studied. Martinez returned from the truck as I finished, carrying a metal container I hadn't noticed before. He knelt beside the body and opened it, revealing a fine white powder. "What is that?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Standard protocol for contamination," he said, sprinkling the powder over the remains. "Stop! You're contaminating evidence." I moved to grab his arm, but he shrugged me off. "This is how we handle these situations, Torres. You want to work at Blackwood, you follow procedure." I watched in disbelief as the powder made contact with the body, a chemical reaction igniting immediately. The remains began to dissolve, breaking down into a viscous green liquid that seeped into the soil, the stench rising like a miasma. "What the hell is happening?" My voice sounded distant, detached from the horror unfolding before me. Martinez continued methodically. "We need to neutralize biological hazards. That's a person." My shock gave way to anger. "Not a hazardous spill." He finally looked at me, his expression unreadable in the harsh flashlight beam. "Not anymore." Headlights appeared on the access road, and two officers stepped out of their cruiser, looking bored rather than alert. "Martinez," one nodded to Steve. "Got another one?" Martinez handed them a canvas bag I hadn't seen before. "Found this at the site. Probably belongs to a hiker." The officer barely glanced inside. "We'll log it. Anything else?" "Routine cleanup. All documented," Martinez said, his hand closing around my arm in a warning grip as I opened my mouth to protest. After they left, I wrenched my arm free. What the hell just happened? Why didn't they investigate the murder? "Get in the truck, Torres." Martinez's voice left no room for argument. The drive back was tense, my questions met with silence until I managed. "I don't know what I saw back there, but I know what I didn't see. A proper investigation of a homicide." Martinez's knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. "You saw a routine cleanup of abandoned camping equipment. That's all. A man was dead, murdered, and you dissolved his body." My voice rose, desperation breaking through. "For your own good, forget what you think you saw tonight," he said, his tone dropping to a dangerous quiet. "Some things at Blackwood are better left alone." Is that a threat? It's advice from someone who wants you to have a long career. Back at the ranger station, the night shift rangers exchanged glances as we entered, a conversation near the coffee machine halting abruptly. "Another one at Pinewood," I overheard a whisper. "Third this month. They're getting more frequent." I kept my head down, pretending not to hear, but the words burrowed into my mind. This wasn't an isolated incident. The other rangers knew. After Martinez left, I slipped into the records room, the creak of the door a symphony of my growing dread. I pulled the incident logs for the day, flipping to Pinewood Site B. There it was, not a murder investigation, not even a death report, just a single line. "Routine cleanup of abandoned campsite, all materials properly disposed of." I sat back. The rangers of Blackwood were hiding something significant, something they'd go to extreme lengths to conceal, and Steve Martinez was at its heart. Sleep eluded me that night. Every time I closed my eyes, the mutilated body, the green liquid, and Martinez's resigned face haunted me. A week passed, my ranger duties a blur of checking trails, assisting tourists, and filling out paperwork, but my mind churned with the memory of that night. Nightmares woke me in cold sweats, the green residue seeping into the soil a recurring vision. I searched for answers from other rangers, finding only avoided looks and abrupt changes in conversation. The silence was maddening. Late Tuesday afternoon, I found my opportunity in the break room. Martinez stood by the coffee maker, alone for once, pouring a cup, his back to the door. The sharp click of the door closing made his shoulders tense. "We need to talk about what happened at Pinewood," I said, moving to block the exit. He didn't turn right away. "Nothing happened at Pinewood. Just a routine cleanup. A man was murdered. You dissolved his body with some kind of chemical. The official report doesn't mention any of it." I stepped closer, my resolve hardening. I'm not leaving until you explain. Martinez faced me, his eyes darting to the windows and door before settling on my face. He set his coffee down and checked his watch. Not here. He moved to the door, opening it slightly to scan the hallway. Follow me. I hesitated, uncertainty gnawing at me, but followed him to a small storage closet near the station's back. He ushered me inside, closed the door, and pulled the chain on a single bare bulb, its flickering light casting jagged shadows. Ask your questions, he said, his voice flat, resigned. What happened to that camper? Why did you destroy the evidence? Why did those officers act like it was routine? Martinez leaned against a shelf of cleaning supplies. Because it was routine for Blackwood. That doesn't make sense. Blackwood isn't like other parks, Torres. It's what some old-timers call a no-man's land. A place where normal rules don't apply. I crossed my arms, my skepticism a shield. What does that mean? It means there are things in these woods that don't show up in any ranger training manual, he said, his eyes boring into mine. Strange creatures. They roam certain areas, sometimes claim victims. Our job isn't just to maintain trails and help lost hikers. It's to clean up these incidents and prevent panic. Creatures? What kind of creatures? Knowing more puts you in danger. The less you know, the safer you are. That's not acceptable. I stood my ground, my voice rising. I saw a man torn apart. I helped cover it up without understanding why. I deserve the full truth. What you deserve and what's good for you aren't the same. He checked his watch again. You've got two choices. Request a transfer to another park and forget what you saw, or accept that some questions don't have answers. Think about it, Torres. Really think about whether you want to know what's out there. The door clicked shut behind him, leaving me alone with more questions than answers. That night in my small ranger cabin, I took out a notebook and began listing what I knew. The body at Pinewood, mutilated in ways that defied animal attacks. The ranger's protocols, white powder, cryptic radio codes, paperwork omitting crucial details. Other rangers hushed discussions of another one. If Martinez wouldn't give me answers, I'd find them myself. Over the next few days, I spent every free moment in the records room, reviewing incident reports dating back months. Most were mundane, lost hikers, minor injuries, permit violations, but scattered among them were entries labeled routine cleanup with minimal details. I plotted these incidents on a personal map of the park, looking for patterns. 3 nights later, I made my breakthrough. Every cleanup had occurred during the new moon, the locations clustering in the northern ridge, eastern valley, and western lake area. The puzzle was taking shape, but pieces were missing. Friday night, I volunteered for the late shift. After the last ranger left at 11, I searched the station, drawn to the supply room's oddly large exterior. Pushing against a shelving unit, I found a seam in the wall, revealing a hidden door with a simple padlock. With a credit card and patience, I picked the lock, the door swinging open to a windowless room lit by a flickering fluorescent light. Weapons lined the walls, specialized rifles with unusual modifications, flamethrowers, containers of various sizes. On a center table sat plastic bins of the white powder Martinez had used, but the map pinned to the far wall drew me forward. It matched official maps in outline but bore markings I'd never seen. Skull symbols in the exact regions I'd noted, red circles labeled feeding grounds, a void during new moon, yellow lines tracing migration patterns between seasons. Beneath it, a handwritten note read, "If you see something, say nothing. Don't investigate." I pulled out my phone, photographing the map and its markings. This was systematic, a conspiracy beyond a few covered-up incidents. I was so focused that I didn't hear the door open behind me. "I was afraid you'd find this place," Senior Ranger Wilson said, his voice steady. I spun around, my throat closing, mind racing for explanations. But instead of anger, his face showed pity. "I told Martinez you were too curious for your own good. Smart enough to piece things together, but not smart enough to leave well enough alone." "What is all this?" I managed, gesturing at the map. Wilson sighed deeply. "Insurance, protection, the tools we need to maintain the balance. between what belongs in this world and what doesn't. He traced a skull marking with his finger. This park has secrets older than the service itself. The body at Pinewood was unfortunate but inevitable. We can't stop what happens here, Torres. We can only contain it, clean up afterward, and keep the public from learning things that would cause panic. I stood my ground. The public deserves to know if they're in danger. Do they? And what happens when the military descends on Blackwood? When scientists try to capture these things for study? When the delicate arrangement we've maintained for decades collapses? His voice was calm, but the weight of his words chilled me. The death toll would be catastrophic. He checked his watch. It's late. Go back to your cabin. Request a transfer tomorrow morning, before you see too much to leave. What does that mean? It means some knowledge can't be unlearned. Once certain entities notice you noticing them, leaving becomes complicated. He gestured toward the exit. Delete those photos for your own sake. I nodded without commitment and left, back in my cabin staring at the photos on my phone. Evidence of something beyond understanding. By dawn, I'd written my resignation letter, the words flowing easily, masking my true reasons. I'd hand it to Wilson after tonight's final shift with Martinez. One more night, then I could leave. Steve was at the station when I arrived, checking equipment with meticulous care. Tonight, we're patrolling the Northern Ridge Road, he said, his voice flat. Standard route. My stomach tightened. Northern Ridge, one of the areas marked with skulls on the hidden map. Not a coincidence. Any particular reason? I asked, keeping my voice casual. Routine, he said, his eyes meeting mine briefly. We prepared in silence. I noticed him checking his sidearm more thoroughly and loading a specialized rifle into the truck, slipping vials of white powder into his jacket when he thought I wasn't looking. The drive began just before sunset, dark clouds covering the sky, blocking daylight early. Weather report mentioned a new moon tonight, Martinez said, his eyes fixed on the road. Visibility will be poor. New moon, another detail from my investigation. Every cleanup incident had occurred then. Want to tell me what we're really doing out here? I asked. Patrol, just like any other night, he replied, his jaw clenching as he pushed the speed faster. 3 hours into our patrol, the night seemed uneventful. Empty road, occasional deer, until our headlights caught movement ahead. Martinez braked hard, the truck skidding on the gravel shoulder. A man crawled along the double yellow line, his clothes torn, blood soaking his shirt. Help, he rasped. Please, my wife. She's in danger. Martinez didn't move immediately. Stay in the truck, he ordered, his voice firm. No matter what happens, stay inside with the doors locked. Promise me, Torres. I nodded, a knot forming in my stomach. He checked his weapon and exited, approaching the man cautiously. Where are you injured, sir? He called, flashlight beam illuminating the blood. My wife, the man repeated, ignoring the question. At our campsite, something attacked us. I understand. We'll get help. Can you tell me where you're hurt? The man went still, his head tilting at an unnatural angle. Do you want to see? He asked, his voice deepening into a resonant hum that made my skin crawl. He lunged with impossible speed, Martinez firing instantly. The bullet hit the man's chest, but he didn't fall, smiling a terrible, too-wide grin. That tickles, the thing said. I watched, frozen, as the man's body changed, limbs elongating, joints bending backward with audible cracks, skin splitting to reveal something pale and glistening beneath. Not muscle or bone, but something else. Martinez fired again, backing toward the truck, the creature advancing relentlessly. A final shot between its eyes stopped it, its body twisting and reshaping as it collapsed, dissolving into a viscous puddle with a faint greenish glow. Martinez radioed, Code Black at Northern Ridge, mile marker 17. Request full cleanup team. Copy that. ETA 30 minutes, came the reply. I couldn't tear my eyes away, the green residue a mirror to Pinewood. Martinez returned, his face expressionless. That wasn't an animal, I whispered. No, he said. It wasn't human either. What was it? Something that doesn't belong in our world. Something science can't explain. He paused. There are entities in this park, Torres. Things that were here long before it became protected land. Things we've learned to deal with because we have no choice. The body at Pinewood, same thing, different entity. The cleanup team arrived, their white powder erasing the evidence. Back at my cabin, Martinez said, "Come to my place tomorrow morning, 7 sharp. I'll tell you everything." The sun rose as I sat awake, the resignation letter in my pocket feeling heavier. At Steve's cabin, smoke rose from the chimney, the interior Spartan but organized. Walls lined with books on local history, folklore, and scientific journals. "I saw that thing change," I said, accepting coffee he offered. "It wasn't human." "No," he nodded. "And it wasn't the first. I need the truth, all of it." He pulled out an old leather-bound journal from Chief Ranger Thomas Elliott, 1923, its pages brittle, describing creatures wearing human skin like ill-fitting suits. "These entities can disguise themselves," Martinez said. "They need to feed on people." "The body at Pinewood?" "Yes, and dozens of others over the years. The Park Service just allows this?" "It's not that simple. There's an arrangement, unspoken but understood. We cover up incidents, keep visitors away from dangerous areas during certain times, and in exchange, the entities limit their hunting and keep away worse things." "Worse things? You don't want to know." He spread photos and documents across the desk, decades of similar incidents. The white powder, developed in the 1950s, neutralizes their toxic residue. Left untreated, it spreads like a disease. The missing people, their families? Officially listed as missing hikers, animal attacks, or accidents. The service handles notifications, compensation when possible. How do rangers react when they learn the truth? Some request transfers immediately, others disappear. Usually after breaking protective rules, stay in your vehicle at night, avoid certain trails during the new moon, never interact with solitary strangers in remote areas, never deviate from paths after sunset. Why are you telling me this? Because you've been marked. That thing last night saw you. You're on their radar now. If you leave without understanding, you won't last a month. So I'm trapped here forever? No. Some rangers serve their time, learn the rules, then transfer to other parks with similar problems. There are more places like Blackwood than the public realizes. A radio burst cut through. Dispatch to all available rangers. For hikers missing from Eagle Point Trail. Last contact 18 hours ago. Vehicle located at Trailhead. Eagle Point, another marked area. "We can't go out there," I protested. "That's why we have to," Martinez said, loading equipment. "For people are missing and night is coming. I won't let you face your last shift alone." At Eagle Point, the hiker's truck sat alone, backpacks and water bottles inside. We established ground rules: stay within sight, keep to the main trail, return before full darkness. A mile in, we found discarded camping gear, a tent half assembled, no signs of struggle. "They left in a hurry," Martinez said, jaw tightening. "We need to head back." I spotted an orange glow through the trees. "Steve, look, that could be a campfire." "We're going back now," he said, his voice harsh. "Nothing good has a fire out here after sunset." "What if it's the hikers?" "It's not them." "I'll be quick. Just a look," I said, moving toward the light. "Torres, get back on the trail," he hissed. But I pushed through the underbrush, drawn by the glow. The fire burned steadily, no fuel visible, and a man sat facing it, his posture off. "Hello? Park Ranger. Are you okay?" I called. He turned, his movement too smooth, too jerky. "Hello, Park Ranger," he echoed, his voice flat. "I am okay. I'm Linda Torres. We're looking for 4 hikers who went missing. Have you seen anyone?" "They moved on," he said, his voice shifting to a deeper resonance. "They're part of the forest now." I stepped back, the clearing empty of other signs. "I should get back to my partner." He stood, unfolding to an impossible height, his smile widening to reveal gleaming rows of teeth. "Why leave now? Your friends will be here soon." Shapes moved in the darkness, converging on the clearing. I turned and ran, branches whipping my face, a multi-toned laughter following. "Torres!" Martinez's voice cut through, urgent and afraid. He grabbed me, pulling me down the trail. A howl rose, joined by others, inhuman and chilling. "Don't look back, just run," he ordered. We reached the truck, tires spitting gravel as we fled, figures loping alongside, retreating from the headlights. "They won't follow out of their territory," Martinez said. "But you broke the rules, left the trail after sunset," approached one. "It marked you. What happens now?" "We report finding no signs of the hikers. Tomorrow you'll understand why some request transfers, and why others can't leave." Sleep never came. The next morning, I found Steve's cabin empty, erased as if he'd never existed. Wilson explained, "He broke the rules to protect you. Now he's gone." I wrote my resignation, but an envelope from Steve arrived. A map with safe routes, a note warning me never to return. I left Blackwood, accepting a job in Chicago, but the knowledge lingers. Can you face the unseen predators that lurk in the wild? Or will you turn away from the shadows that call your name? What would you do if you were marked by something beyond your understanding?